This conference will now be recorded.
All right. Have a good meeting.
Thanks, Joseph.
No problem. Thank you for preparing us for emergencies.
All right, I call the meeting to order. And Commissioner Lawton is online. And we've got
Here.
Commissioner Miller and Commissioner Pierce and Commissioner Bryant and myself, Commissioner Burns, in attendance. Does anybody want to move to approve the minutes for the last meeting of May 23rd?
I'll move to approve the minutes.
I second that.
Okay, and everybody
Aye.
approves.
Yeah.
I don't believe we have anybody from the public in attendance. So we'll move right into new business. And the first item is a discussion about emergency response plan as opposed to an EOP, which I believe is an emergency operation plan.
Yes,
So
and this, I think, because I'm sorry, I don't have a picture of everybody. Excuse me. This was something that Curry County is evidently working on an EOP as opposed to a full plan. And we had talked briefly about going in that direction.
I don't know enough about the two of them to know how much better that would be.
As I understood it, the EOP is more of a operating plan, which is, I think, more efficient, where you can go directly to the communications information, directly to the basic important information one would need during an emergency. So it's much more condensed than a plan. Dick, are you familiar with that at all?
Wasn't Ashley going to have the county plan ready by the 31st of July? And I
Yes.
don't know if the plan is going to be proactive or reactive or what it is, but it's very difficult for us to mesh with that plan, which we have to do until we see it.
Right, right.
I don't know. Have you talked to Ashley to see where she is on that?
I haven't been able to talk with her, and she was going to contact me at some point here, and I think you as well, Dick, about things that were brought up in that meeting. But I haven't had any word from her, and I tried calling the other day, and I haven't got through. So I guess we'll just have to. She did mention she was copying the format from the state's EOP. So I can continue to follow through and maybe follow through with the state and see what they have.
Well, under state law, we're subject and subordinate to the county and the county to the state and then of course to the feds. But we can think of things from a standpoint of a local response, but how we interact with the county and then forward to the state, we don't have a clue exactly what they envision unless somebody knows more about it than I do. But I haven't read anything that was that definitive.
Yeah.
I just wonder at some point we're going to need to decide if we're just going to try to work out our own plan.
Well, I think we have to do two things, Gary. One, that we can certainly come up with a local plan because there's things that need to be done here if the county is unavailable or does nothing. So that's one component. The other is if it's scope that we need to interact with them for support or they have for us with resources or anyway, coordination to the north and to the south. That by law has to be through the county. that's the weak part until the county offers and puts their plan on the table. So it's a twofold
Yeah.
thing.
Well, then we're also looking at our local isolation here too. That's
Yep.
another part of the issue.
So you're right. We have to think of the local component.
Because it could be that we just don't have a county component if a big thing happened.
It would all depend on communications level at that point.
Well, that being the
Mhm.
case, there's some other elements in things on the agenda that deal with local response. I think that's very valid to deal with now, and that would exist no matter where the county falls into this over the long run. But today, I don't know that the city has a definition of who does what and all that, where to report, what their roles are and responsibilities. Or it's very old if it exists at all.
Yeah, I haven't seen anything. Have you seen anything, Carol?
No, no. I haven't heard anything back from um, our city administrator. Have you talked to her or interacted with her?
She's been tied up with other things for sure.
And then on the local basis, something that's on here is another agenda item is the proactive local activity to at least help people be prepared and think about what they're going to have to do. There's nothing stopping us from doing that.
I kind of feel like that's going to be our main thing. It's for every family or household, we can get them, convince them to start preparing themselves. The stronger the community is going to be. If down the road if we can get any kind of momentum, and then just kind of just keep going with that. If we could, felt like if we could get everybody into the idea of being prepared for 3 days, having a go bag first,
Yeah.
and then to get prepared for 3 days. If you're prepared for 3 days, then it's not that much more to extend it to a week. And um, and what we're going to choose is, what are the we're kind of getting ahead of ourselves here.
Yeah, we've got
We're
that
going
further down the agenda.
right. So we probably should just try to get a hold of Ashley again before the next meeting and try to get a feel for exactly if there is a plan and how we to interact with that.
Well, I would agree with that, Gary. And in parallel with that, I would focus locally on item B in the new business agenda. Uh, I don't know, maybe there is a list of who the players and the cast of players for just the local only event. What's holding us up from doing that?
Mm-hmm.
I don't think there's anything. And that would mesh in time with whatever the county's doing when we know what they're doing.
That was my thing. You could easily blend with a county operation once that's known, if we have some local planning in place.
Right.
Yeah, we're on the same page.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Now,
know it's been a while since we had our last meeting, but I believe at the time we did talk about Ashley Moore from the Sixes Fire Department is having an event in August that we could join and have some kind of a booth there, I would imagine.
And that's a 5K race. That's a 5K race they're holding in August. On the
are you
24th.
guys involved in that
Yes.
They're going to
That's-
be holding that
the
to
Sixes race.
school.
at Driftwood?
So,
That might be an opportunity for us to have a booth.
Were there many people
actually, it's pretty good turnout.
of the community?
Yeah.
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 And our Ham Club is supplying communications for that race also. So,
And then we haven't done anything that you know of as a city for an emergency.
no.
And that's
Yeah.
coming up
Maybe we
August.
can plan on that.
Shayla Carpenter, the contact for that.
Okay.
Okay.
So do we want to take part in that? Well, you guys are already taking part in it, but I'm wondering if from a community emergency response, if we want to.
It'd be a good place to pass out some of those pamphlets Ashley gave us.
Oh,
Yeah.
right. Okay.
Yes. We could have a demonstration table with some of the equipment and some of the packs that can be made up or bought.
Last year, the Coast Guard participated as well. They brought in a helicopter, landed it on the school ground,
Oh,
and there was other emergency equipment in
Yeah.
the area. So they made quite a public profile out of the whole thing.
oh, nice.
They're not bringing the helicopter
Not
in
for
this
sure,
year
no.
though,
Okay.
but they had several
Shall I,
vendors, everything. So,
and if she wants us, if she thinks that's okay, if we have a table and begin to distribute some of this stuff?
Now I'm wondering, that would be out, would the whole thing be outside?
it's all outside, yeah.
Because it's going to be
Was there
windy.
some inside the gymnasium?
Again,
What was
I
that?
thought were there booths inside the gymnasium, I thought?
Just outside the gymnasium, there was some food booths set up out
Yeah.
there. I
Mm.
don't, it was inside, to my knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, no.
Okay.
I imagine we could have things in boxes and then just
Yeah.
take them out and hand them to people. Okay.
What was the, Matt?
What was that again, Carol?
I'm sorry, it's hard not seeing and knowing when to interject. Sorry. The date on that event.
The date, Harry.
The August 24th.
Thank you.
My hearing's bad. I can't understand.
And then, so you guys will have the trailer at the school?
Yes,
So we could maybe make that kind of our hub.
we can.
Yeah, last year we had it right next to the community building, right off the
Yeah.
end of the school there, right on the
Yep.
side street,
Okay.
Washington.
Right at the start finish line for the race. So,
Okay. So how do we want to handle that? Do we want to have a meeting before? Do we want to just do it by emails?
probably could do it all by email and all, but
Mm-hmm. See who might be available to participate in it and be part of it. Gary, do you think you can bring the kinds of supplies, since I know you're quite prepared yourself, as a demonstration of the types of things that people should be putting together?
Oh, like have a go bag opened up and
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I could bring some water, those water cubes and okay,
maybe have a list of resources where you could buy ready-made ones too.
of go bags.
Yeah. They're not cheap, but
If you want to get together when I get back, Gary, and maybe we can plan it out, you and I, a little more, and then send emails to everyone to see who wants to participate or can participate and be at the booth as well.
I think that sounds perfect. Okay, so I'll go ahead and contact Shayla and let her know that we're going to be part of the ham setup and coordinate with her.
Yeah, last year, quite a few town folks did hang out around the ham
Yeah.
emergency trailer. That was the start finish, so it was a fairly robust event there.
Perfect. Oh, good. And then people are thinking
Yeah.
in the right
Right.
mode. They're there. Okay, so Carol and I will meet, um, and Carol and or I will try to get a hold of Ashley for the next meeting and try to get a little more of what the county expects of us and how we're going to work with them.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so we'll move on to the next item, establishing communication contacts and responsibilities. So we basically need a list of who the contacts are for whatever there is.
Key players in the city.
Harry's been more of a part of it than I have in the past, but from what I've seen, there's just been no one to contact. Even if we had an event, no one would know who to talk to.
Right.
It's been, yeah, you ask them and they go,
Didn't we ask Melissa for a list? I think, Gary, when you and I met with her, we asked her for a list.
She didn't have a list at that time. And,
But she said she would get one for us.
right. So we can, so we should be able to get the city contacts from her. So that'd be Chief Hobart and Dave Duncan and
Mm-hmm.
About the only contacts I've ever heard of in towns in my years here has been the police and fire,
right.
and water, not any other local services, not really involved.
Right. So we'll be talking about it in a bit. Hopefully we'll end up having radios in the public works vehicles at some point. We're working toward that. And then it seems like we should have the paramedics phone and some other um, organizations and just start a list and just keep adding to it if we.
Utility contacts, medical.
Yeah.
I
Mm-hmm.
think
Yeah.
And yeah, and just be thinking about, because if we lose the grid, then all of our communications basically go out the window. So the hams would be the only. And would you be able to, if there was no repeater, would you still be able to get out of our area?
yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
No doubt.
And so then you have all of that information in the trailer?
Oh, I'm having a hard time hearing you.
You have all of that information in the trailer?
It's not written down, but I can get something written up and put in there. And also,
And then it'd be good for us to have the whole thing written down that that the hams would be able to contact somebody and then find out who they are and how we can work with them to get resources to help us.
But we really do need names of key players across the board. Right now, we have nothing. We know who Chief
Yeah.
Hobart and we know who Dave is.
Right.
That's about it.
Uh-huh.
well, some sense of where the city would function, which would probably be here at City Hall. So should the trailer be here or,
Well, unless it's underwater.
yeah, unless it's underwater, then the alternate City Hall. There's probably a lot more chances of a non-tsunami
Yeah.
event than there is some of the other things that can happen. But sort of a loose plan of where business is going to be conducted. Well, they wouldn't even know where to take the trailer or who's going to be there or any of those things.
I know on the city evacuation plan, there's an assembly area right at the top of Ocean Street, right at the overlook there, but that's the only real associated assembly area that I see, on top of Coast Guard Hill as well, but
Yeah.
getting up there would probably be impossible.
Yeah.
Right,
Major event.
right.
Top of Ocean would be far more possible.
And all that needs to be documented. somewhere.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Mhm. So I'm
we'll be
wondering, should we get a,
Gary, can you contact Melissa and see if you can't get that list from her?
yeah, it's not like she has a list, so we're gonna need to ask,
Sure,
working
sure.
with her to put that list together and who the people are and,
Well, I think Melissa needs to at least be a sideline player,
right,
Mhm.
knowledgeable going on. And she has a role too, or whoever her alternate is. So all that stuff is not a big deal. It just needs to be,
so that everybody knows, that she
so everybody
knows.
knows,
Right.
playing off the same sheet of music.
And I'm thinking we're gonna wanna know how to contact Langley Fire and
Six's fire.
Six's Fire. And if there was any kind of a shake, we're gonna lose the road to Gold Beach. But we're not, it could be open if the bridges didn't go out.
In the other direction. Yeah. And Dave Duncan has those contacts, definitely. The other person who needs to be involved in is much more active right now as an assistant chief is Wyatt. And so his number, and I can talk to him on Tuesday more about this. He should be involved as well.
Good.
Both of them would know how to get a hold of Sixes and Langlois. He lives out on Airport Road, so he's out in that area.
So I guess we get a list going and then just keep adding. I'll work on getting the medic's phone number.
Is there anyone we need to contact in regards to maritime services here, like Port Orford or Coast Guard even, or something like that?
We can sure find out. Yeah.
Yeah. That would be a possibility as well.
Hmm.
They should have, the number should be there.
Yeah.
If the food industry can be brought together in some fashion, there would be a key player too in an extended isolation, including the market and the restaurants,
That should be included in contact names as well.
contact names, but
Yeah.
preferably a key player along with the contact names that's take the lead in finding a plan to, how are you going to feed a bunch of people? How do we work together to support the community in a serious time of need? There's so many things that could be thought out ahead of time and documented.
Yeah.
Hey, you know if there's a business association in town led by somebody?
The
know of.
Main Street is the
Main Street,
Chamber
okay,
of Commerce.
I'm thinking, Dick, could you, especially since you're more knowledge about this type of thing, could you put together a list of those people you think, businesses and organizations that you think should be involved and that we have contact numbers for? And then just little by little, we can obtain the numbers and get them on that list. But maybe we could start with a list of the people and the organizations that we do need.
I'm not sure, were you talking to me specifically? Maybe you're thinking of call it an outline. These are the players that we need to start thinking about, and we'll fill in the names when we get them.
Yeah.
Yes. Do you think you could put that together, Dick?
I could do that.
Yeah.
First cut at it, have it at least before the next meeting or sooner, and I'm sure people will think of things that I don't think of, but at least it's a start. You know, these are the
It's a
blanks we have.
start.
And we
Yeah.
can do things like that on email, and
No, I can do that. That's no problem.
that'd be great.
City would be the top of the list, but you know, they're going
Might
to be.
want to involve people in what regards to
Mhm.
shelter, various motels, hotels, and churches.
Yeah, good point. I didn't think of that off the hammer. You're exactly right.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll
Yeah,
put
that's
something
a good
together,
idea.
and then
Thank you.
yeah, they're going to have to help fill in the blanks.
Of course. All of us. Of course.
And we can, I don't mind just picking it apart and talking to all the different church leaders, and we can
Mhm.
just break that down.
That could be a huge resource of the area, though. Really could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think our names and numbers should be on that too.
What was that again?
I would think our names and numbers would be
Right.
on it as in a grouping of, possible, maybe we can be used as referrals to other emergency responders and organizations. We can be a resource potentially for that.
Yep. And then in doing that, we're also communicating with the churches and the restaurants and getting them thinking
Another
about.
one, since we have a couple of state parks in town, you might want to include the state parks.
Oh, right.
You're exactly
Mm.
right.
Mhm.
Well, one of an extension of that part of the project would be how do all these people communicate with each other absent a probably inactive telephone system. So, you know, there's a lot of things we can do right now. And I'll start with the list of who the players should be to be added to as people see what I write. Oh, I
Yeah.
got a couple good ideas from Gordon.
And I think once we get it kind of going, then we can start including Melissa kind of, I think right off out the chute, she's so tied up with, she's getting information from a fire hose.
I don't think it'd just be enough for her to know we're working on it. I don't.
Yeah,
She wants to get involved in it. I don't know how she does what she does.
I know. Yeah. And then we can just keep having we can probably have versions of the list, and so that each list, as at some point, say this is version 3 now, and then all of a sudden there's going to be new names, and so
I
we.
think Dick's idea is a good one where you establish the base, you put down the organizations and situations involved in it, and then fill in the blanks from there. Just leave a bunch of blanks and start filling in names and phone numbers and
Yeah.
contact ability,
Yeah.
radio, whatever they have.
Yep.
Fill
Yeah.
in from there.
You could put that on a spreadsheet, Dick, and then have it listed maybe even under categories.
For like churches and restaurants and
Yes. Mhm.
organizations. Well, good. Well, I feel really good about that. I think that's really an important thing that we need to. There's so many different. It's so easy to flounder with this, taking on the whole project.
One thing we don't like to think about, but it occurs during emergencies, we had it down in Lowman pre-edit, is resource security. We had a lot of resources that were brought in and there was no security for them. People were ripping off the resources.
Oh,
Hate to say that, it's an issue. So that
sure,
law enforcement needs to be brought in from that angle as well.
Oh, yeah.
right.
Absolutely.
Well, what I envision in each of the major categories is somebody that you could either call the leader or the coordinator for that category, but include the names of the other people. Because that leader person may not be available or out of town or something. But if they know there's some kind of a expectation,
That
at
they're a
least
part
they
of a
can talk
group.
and see how they fit into the big picture. So we can start on that. I should have something out in less than a week on that. It's a part of filling in the blanks. It might take a while,
Uh-huh.
but we could start.
That'd be great. And then if you email it to everybody and everybody can add who they particularly know what the numbers might be. Sure, we may be duplicating, but that way we could all kind of work on it and fill in the gaps.
Yep. Well, cool. I'm glad that's getting started. Um, Going on to the next item, outreach to the Coos County Emergency Services Department. The chances of Coos County being a little sharper than Curry County is a real possibility. Um,
I'd say it's a probability.
and so I think we can slowly start trying to creep in and letting them know that um,
That plus our northern access might be more viable in an emergency
that we
situation.
might be able to just drive up there.
Yeah.
It's real possible.
Possibly.
To get things and
What
bring back.
What about asking the woman who represents that organization to come, just like Ashley did, come talk to us?
Oh, right. We can work toward that and see if they're open to that. We need to make contact with them and whoever it is and see how open they are and just how far they would want to take that relationship.
Carol, I thought you had a contact up there in Coos County.
I do, and I'm certainly willing to contact her again and see what the possibilities are.
Excellent.
Well, if that's true and you could set something up, I'd be happy to go with you. And I
Okay.
see it in that because the counties are very parochial. They like to deal with, things that are supposedly and on paper in their authority, but geography sometimes forecloses that ability. Uh, in our case, we probably would have more of an affinity with the folks to the north than we would if there was a major outage on 101 to the south, either road wise or communications wise. And I saw a parallel of that in Los Angeles County, where the North County, the North High Desert, was all part of LA County. So they encompassed that area into their planning. But in the event of a major incident, and it happened more than once, the areas are isolated. Uh, there's more of an affinity with the folks in Kern County and San Bernardino County and maybe even Inyo County than there is in LA County, including a lot of military resources. So we actually formed an emergency group within the framework of those people in the geographical area. Uh, the LA County wasn't real fond of that idea, but the reality was these were the people we would play. We were in the same sandbox with them,
Right.
literally and figuratively.
Geographically, we're not quite Curry, we're not quite Coos.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's the problem.
Yep, exactly. So it would be interesting to see how they interact with the cities. Don't they? Those are incorporated cities, Myrtle Point and maybe Coquille and maybe another one I don't know about. So they're very similar in a lot of ways. We could benefit by other people's experience. And I think they're a little further ahead than we are in their planning.
Right. They probably already have a plan.
I'm not sure where Bandon is in all this at all. Have you heard anything?
They're pretty active with Curry.
They're
Coos
another
County.
player in
Yeah.
Coos.
They've got a pretty good program going.
Well, could we figure maybe on setting something up with the approval of the committee and then we'll go up there and talk to them, Carol?
Yes,
If you could say-
absolutely. I'll give her a call. I've got her contact information. So I'll get that started.
Excellent. And even our service groups like Rotary and the Lions could be, or probably we should just, every single group there is that could come together with their own members and feel like they're going to be a part of whatever the situation
The school
is.
district needs to be involved as well.
Right. I'll be meeting with it's on old business, but I'll be meeting with Aaron Miller um, at some point here soon, and okay, so I think we got that covered. Um, so does it seem going into the new business D, go bags, stay bags, and stash discussion? Um, it'd probably be good to have our recommended list. Is that
Quite a few of those are available on the internet. I know there's a good number of established co-bag, uh, situations where we
uh-huh,
develop a bag with certain minimal materials and certain nice to have materials.
right, and the different
My
levels?
go-bag weighs more than I could ever carry just for 3 days for 2 of them. There you go.
Camping trip.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my car is just full of stuff now.
Then I can throw my 2 month supplies into the car real fast if I have
Mhm.
to.
Those
Right.
brochures that we saw, do you have any of those, box of them or anything?
What's that?
The one that you had in the email you sent out, there was a photo of a brochure. So do you have
Oh,
those or can we get those?
I just got pulled that off the internet.
Yeah, that was just a one.
Okay.
I saw.
Uh-huh.
Well, I was thinking it was something that we can hand out along with the links to the
Sure.
internet. That would be something that could be done during this coming event right at
Right.
the commune.
Right.
Now, that could be a powerful resource.
Yeah, and one thing to recommend to people too, that especially elderly folks that couldn't carry a heavy bag, get one on wheels.
Oh, good
Mm-hmm.
idea. Yeah,
Like the airports.
Yeah.
Yeah.
sure.
Well, big thing with go bags, though, you shouldn't have to plan to be hauling them any distance or anything. Probably have them in your vehicle, and if you have to go 100 yards with them, that would probably be the extreme distance. And then around here, as far as water is concerned, you don't have to carry gallons of water for everybody. If you have a life straw or a filtration pump, there's so much water around here, you wouldn't have much of a problem in any case.
Right.
So we could take those lists and amend them for the area, adapt
Mm-hmm.
them to our local resources and everything too.
At one time, a couple of years ago, I contacted Sawyer water filter company, and I had those for sale for cost in the gallery, and we could do another push for that.
Had a batch of life straws in or something like that.
They were the Sawyer ones.
A little bit different. I remember.
It's got a bag,
Yeah,
so you fill the bag, and then you can squirt the bag through the filter.
yeah.
So you can squirt it into a pan or into your mouth, or
I have life straws and I have a pump unit that's for
oh, and you have
larger
a pump.
volume.
Uh-huh.
Then I have a rocket stove for boiling water if I need to as well. So I go overkill. I don't quite get into eating local plants though. So
Okay, well, we'll just keep working on that. I'll try to get a list of for the go bag.
I think community buy-in on go bags, stay bags, stash operations. So it starts actually with the school kids. It's just like they use them for other resources. They get the parents bought in once the kids address it in schools and then it moves on up from there.
Right, right.
as far
Yeah,
as community buy-in, it's a tough sell.
it really is. There's only so many people that are going to be interested in thinking that. But I think we can keep harping on it on Facebook. And part of why I wanted that bulletin board at the market was to have different things, flyers in there that could put that in people's minds.
In the last community I was in, we had about 500 people in a meeting talking the talk all the time. And as far, when it came down to the final analysis about 6 months later, I think about 20 of them had go bags out of 500. It wasn't great, but everyone was very enthusiastic in meetings.
Yeah, we'll just try to keep thinking of ways that we can promote the idea and get people to buy in on it. I know when I finally made the decision to get prepared, that it was something I took on for a couple of years, and I kind of each month I looked into another aspect, and if we can get people doing that, um, and where to get the stuff and make it really easy, I think that's because the more people that are set up like we are, then that's the less people that are going to have to be taken care of.
The stash locations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, okay, we'll move on to soliciting funds for the community, from the community for radios. Carol and I had talked about that, and I was just going to go ahead and try to get one of the radios in one of the pickups, and I was just going to donate whatever it cost. And Carol thought that might be something that we could get the community to buy in on. And I believe there's 6 radios.
I thought we already had the radios.
We have we have 6 radios, so that we just
Well, then what are the funds for?
to
Put
get
them in,
them
install 'em?
installed. Yeah.
Or the FRS radios or,
No, they're same like they have in the police car.
oh, okay. Okay.
Kenwoods.
Okay.
So we'll guess we can maybe try a GoFundMe deal that we can promote every now and then, and see if we can get
Mhm.
anybody that's interested in donating. I'll get back on John and try to John Isidore and try to have him pick out one pickup, maybe his pickup, and arrange. Jeremy, the mechanic, said that he thought he could install them.
I think I talked with them. Actually, the next step in that, or next component of that, would be the something here in City Hall. And those same radios with a couple of inexpensive accessories can be used as a base station, which is basically what the new base stations are anyway. And Dave told me there's one of the antennas over there on the tower has a cable from that antenna over here to City Hall, but he didn't know what it was for. So we need to look at that. There might already be a good part of the radio installation already here.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I think that's important to know what kind of radios we need and who would be using them.
I'm not sure I totally understood the question.
She was wondering who would be using the radios.
And,
Yeah,
and
that's
what
a good question.
kind.
These are commercial, high-end commercial grade two-way radios, exactly like the 3 that are in the police cars here. They're typically used for administration and public utilities. The water people should have one. That's a start. And if we extend this into the plan, probably the city administrator and any key person in the city should have communications outside the normal commercial services.
Mm-hmm.
being cell phones. The pickup trucks, what are there, a couple of pickup trucks that are involved? How many do they have?
I think there's a pickup truck for each of the employees.
How many employees? Five pickups, four
I
maybe?
think there's 4 or 5.
Pickup trucks are the least expensive to install, so that's a good thing. The base stations are expensive, but it could be that the expensive parts are already completed. The other thing is you need to have a frequency to operate on. The city has a license on one local government frequency, VHF, compatible with the radios that are already available. The same frequency is licensed in Gold Beach and Brookings, but these cities could operate independently. And I don't know whether they're using them or not, but with some subaudible codes and some tricks, you can set it up so they can operate independently, or they can talk to each other if they're within range. So we have a resource for that. We don't even have to apply for a license. It's already in existence.
Nice.
I don't think those frequencies or that frequency that the city currently owns, I don't think it's in the radios that's either in the trailer or even in the 2 or 3 police cars. But we should find out because they should be able to go there too.
Yeah, the ones we have in the trailer are the same as the police have.
Okay, well, I don't know if they have that frequency in there because the county provided the frequency list, and I'm not sure they considered that these 3 cities already had licenses for their own operation.
I don't believe they are.
I wouldn't think so.
No.
But we could read one out
Well,
and find out.
I believe actually that was a discussion we had with her. And remember, we were talking about contacting the sheriff and finding out what frequency we could use. And she stopped us and said, I know who to contact. I'll find out what the frequency is. But then we've never heard back from her.
I think she was talking more about their backdoor frequencies that they use just for their little private resource in the county.
Yeah.
I think is what she was referring to at the time.
Well, I think so
Mhm.
too, but I also think the county needs to designate and define a way that they intend to communicate with the cities. One option, of course, is satellite phones, which are not cheap.
Right.
Two-way radios, which are relatively inexpensive, very inexpensive by comparison. But it has to be a plan to use it. And that would logically be under a license owned by the city, or I'm sorry, by the county. I doubt they've even thought that out very much, to be honest with you. When I read the plan that I found, they were making heavy use of the public telephone network. I don't think that's a good part of the plan, frankly.
No,
But
because that depends on the grid.
yeah, write that off. So anyway, what I'm thinking of now is the city internally and our community outside this city government, how we function, and we'll fill in the blanks and reprogram, which is easy to do, to accommodate communications with the county when the county figures out how they want to do it.
But we can continue. We can be working on
Oh,
having
absolutely.
ours set up.
Reprogramming a radio takes longer to set up to do it, like 10 minutes, than it does to actually do it.
So maybe we could. I think you said we could use one of the radios that we have, one of the 6, as a base station
Yes.
radio with a converter.
You need a power supply, and Kenwood, and those are Kenwood radios. They actually have a case where you can enclose a power supply, and it looked like a nice base station, and it sits on the counter. It can sit in a desk here in the Public Works office. We can get the office used to talking to the field people by radio instead of by phone. So the plus side of that is if it's used on a daily basis, you're pretty sure it's going to work when you have an emergency.
Right.
If you only use it on emergency, odds are some of them are not going to work.
Yep.
So
And
that, are you saying, Dick, that we will need to buy a base station in addition to any radios?
the expensive part is the radio, and the city has 6 of them. I guess it's sitting on the shelf. that base station, one of the intended for a mobile unit, can be used as a base station. And all you need, you could literally just sit it on the desk with a power supply, but it just so happens Kenwood has a nice cabinet for $30 or so to set that thing in with a power supply, and it looks like it's a full base station, but it's really a mobile unit. And if you actually look at some of the mobile or the base stations that are used anyway, it's just the base station has a mobile unit in it in a different box. So it's that simple.
So that would be the good one to start with, because then Melissa or somebody from City Hall could talk to the police right off the bat, because
Well, there's another element of that too. That same base station could be programmed to communicate either with the local police, which basically use the county frequencies, or with whatever the county designates as their emergency communications channel for the respective cities.
and that would take a repeater.
They have to tell us what they're doing first. We don't know.
But a repeater would be needed for,
I'm sorry?
a repeater would be needed.
Not necessarily. The odds are you could communicate to another base station down there without a repeater. Would you not say that's true on, say, 2 meters?
On 2 meters?
Here and there.
Yeah, you're mobile wise, no.
Yeah, but from the top of Ocean Hill.
If
with
you
the
go up.
power, you can do it.
Yeah.
Ocean Boulevard.
But
That would be a high enough, and
yeah, but
It would be a backup, but if they designate a repeater for that purpose, great, that would be the best option. Unfortunately, they sometimes fail too when you need them the most. And they've evidently had their whole radio site out down in the South County too for almost a month from a lightning strike.
oh, right,
So,
Everything.
right.
so this stuff's vulnerable. So you just have alternatives.
Well, I think we need to, when you're asking anybody for money, I think we need to have a clear picture to tell them what this is going to be for. And I'm thinking down to the model and number and the basics. Anyone would want to know if they're going to give us money. What is this going to be used for? And then maybe we can list what exactly we're buying. And that would include, I would imagine, a base station or maybe more than one base station.
Well, I'm not sure I totally understand your question. We have the mobile units and we have the base station, except a couple of components we need to make it work. I would address it as a means of providing internal city communications and coordination with the ability to expand it to coordinate with the county or fire or whoever else wants to play in the same arena. So it's so flexible that we just need to put them in place, and we can add the channels in a heartbeat. You don't have to buy anything. You just hook up a laptop and do some programming and you're done. These new radios are pretty cool.
Because we should be able to probably be able to talk to our fire department
Oh, absolutely.
and the medics,
Public Works, that type of thing.
public works, and the
Yeah.
police.
and the way these radios are set up, they have alphanumeric display. So it's not just the numbers you're seeing, it tells you what frequency you're actually on. Like it say law 1, law 2, fire,
Yeah.
what have you.
Oh, perfect.
So it makes
Well,
it
tells
easy
you what you're
for,
talking to. Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
I don't think these are that radios where you can show the identity of the calling unit, but you can do all that. You can coordinate with most of the entities. A few that you can't. One would be the state police. They're up in their own world. Probably a couple others. I don't know where the utilities are, but if they want to be a player, that's a possibility. And most of them have some VHF channels. Schools, I don't know if they use them for school buses or what they do. Do they have radios in the school buses, or
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
you guys should sell
They
them?
rely on cell phones.
And again, cell phones are dependent on a set network. And school buses are a resource for moving people if you have to, medical or otherwise. We just need to lay the groundwork so we can blend in with whatever other people want to be a player in this planning.
And just start pulling people in
Yes.
to
But
get
if
used
we
to
were
being
set up,
part of something.
the county comes along later and finally says, okay, this is how we would think we want to communicate with you. We just make sure it's programmed. We can program in to monitor just about any of those VHF frequencies, all of them. We can either talk on them or not, depending on how we program it. Just for fun in my own, I have a Kenwood in my car and I can listen to all the frequencies in the county, but I deliberately disabled the transmitter because I didn't want to inadvertently talk to them because they probably don't want to hear from me.
I have a scanner that hears everything in the county. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
It's that simple, but these radios will scan as well. They're pretty powerful radios now.
They're older radios, but they were the pretty good ones.
Absolutely nothing wrong with them.
Pretty capable. I know what you're speaking.
People talk about P25, that's overrated. And I was on the original development of the P25 program, which is, migrated in different directions, but it's kind of oversold, and we really don't need that expensive a radio and the licensing that goes with it for software licensing to be very effective in this area. When I talked to the state guy, he made some funny comment about the folks down in Curry County, and it was in reference to being so isolated and sort of in the backwoods part of the county, but that might be a good thing. I'd rather be here than in Portland. Let's put it that way. If there's a disaster.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. So
So that wasn't related to ham radios. That was really funds to install and use the existing radios. Okay, I get it. Because I wasn't sure how that, what that was.
so we would need to figure out again what we need for each of the radios to have one of them as a base station and the others to be in a vehicle.
You had one of those. Maybe if we could get one again, and I'll read one out and see what's in it. If you still have it,
No, I'll have to get it again.
I'll bring my equipment over and I can read it out and see what they do now.
Which is somewhere in the 2 meter range.
Yeah, they're like 148 to 174 range or something like that.
Yeah.
Do you have the equipment to program them or?
Oh yeah, I'm a Kenwood dealer.
Okay.
And have been for 20 years.
Yeah.
But in California, but fortunately they all program the same.
Yeah.
And I can get software if I don't have it. We still, I'm not involved directly in the company now. My son's running it, but he sells a lot of radios down south. And all Kenwood.
So I'll try to get another set of what we have, and then we
Just
can.
get the box, and
Because
next time I get over there, I'll bring this.
I think we needed an antenna for each one.
Sorry, a what?
An antenna.
Probably.
I think that's what was missing. And
Those are not expensive. I don't think I put gain antennas on, so you're talking about a $15 antenna, and then the cable another 15, so it's not a budget breaker.
great. And I think Jeremy was going to ask $250 for installing one in a truck.
You wanted how much?
$250.
That seemed a little high, but he didn't know what he was dealing with, so we
Right.
might be able to work a better deal with him. I'm fully confident they can do it. It's really not that hard.
No.
I would do it if I wasn't too old to fool with that kind of stuff anymore. To put it bluntly, I've done my share of them over the years.
Right. Okay, well, that'll get us a little farther along on the radios. Going to old business. So I have emailed Aaron and he acknowledged, but my thought was to see if we could get some kind of a program going at the high school and then to try to get the high school students to come to the elementary school and teach a emergency preparedness class. If that seems like a good idea, I'll just work toward that. And it's something I picture we won't start off with what it'll end up being 10 years from now, but we'll try to get something started.
I haven't been on the earlier discussions, but what level of emergency education are you referring? What level?
We're just going
the
to
very
start at the basic, and then if that seems like it's something that's kind of working,
Takes on them or whatever. Yeah.
it'd be like maybe we would start with taking the ham trailer down up to the high school and exposing the student there to what the trailer can do, and maybe do a discussion on go bags, and we can come up with whatever simple program we do, and then try to get them to come down to the elementary school. It just seemed like we get a bigger bang for our buck because the elementary school kids are probably going to be impressed having the high school students more so than us. We would be there, but we try to set it up to where they would be actually.
At my age, I don't know how they associate with one another now, so I have no idea.
Mhm. And we want them to get as much out of it as they can.
Yeah.
And like we were talking earlier, if we can have the students going home with handouts of what, and that they're going to like try to force their parents, we try to get them really in on it.
One level down in California, I saw that work real well where we had kids go home and just kind of browbeat the parents. Hey, we're not prepared for this kind of stuff. Shouldn't we be thinking about it? And the parents actually started kind of going along with some of it.
Because they just don't have time to think about
No,
it.
they're happy to have their kids involved in something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of took a little,
But there's family fire plans,
there you go.
and meeting places. There's things that directly involve the family. So
Yeah.
there's a lot of material that can be presented.
And we can
So do you need
maybe,
to recontact the school superintendent about that, Gary?
yeah, I wanted for us to all agree on it so that when I meet with him, we can start off with what we'll want to do for the first year, and we can make it maybe a 2-hour class that we go up and talk to them, and then see if that works, if they can come down and talk to the elementary school kids and get them to buy that idea, and try to come up with what we want in the big picture at the end of it, that we'd hope that all the families would have go bags, and they would have extra water, and they'd have some different components to make their lives a little nicer if we did have an emergency. And I was going to just keep pitching it on Facebook about don't expect anybody to come save the day, that you're going to be on your own, and try to get people thinking about that as much as possible. And then if we do get something going, it's only going to help to have as many people as possible to be able to hang out by themselves for at least a few days.
Yeah, I agree.
Carol, did you get anywhere on the satellite dish?
I haven't, and I think last meeting I mentioned that Ashley never got back to me. She was actually going to follow through on that. So I will take the time between now and the next meeting to track that information down.
Perfect.
One comment on the satellite dish, and the way it's presented, it reminds me of a lot of things that would come to my attention where the sheriff in particular, they see a new toy at the police chief's show and they'd want one. And I sort of put that in this category. It's probably a very useful tool, but I think if I were the one that was approving the funding, I would say, who are you going to talk to with it? And who are the other players that you could interact with if you have this thing? And I don't know if anybody knows that for sure. Maybe the county has one. I don't know, or they don't. I've heard both the cities to the north or the county and what have you, or whatever, whoever we want to, what are we going to use it for? Start with that as a base for buying one.
I don't even know the capabilities of the things,
Yeah.
quite frankly.
So I would
Well,
certainly find.
I agree with you. And when you and I meet with the Coos emergency manager, she is the one that told me about this, and they in fact have one of these satellite dishes. So we
That's a
can
good
probably find a lot more information from her.
Well, very good. That would be a good source. And can they talk to their 3 or 4 cities, the state if they have to, or the utilities or whoever? It'd be interesting to know who the satellite players would be. Is it what? How many dollars is that thing? Quite a few. How much that thing cost?
75. It was, all they are asking is it comes to us free, but we're required, or the city will be required to insure it, which costs about $75, I think is what she said.
Is there a subscription fee for it too? Use or
She
like a
didn't,
phone bill?
she didn't say there, I don't know, but she didn't mention anything like that.
Well, we need to find out. It's sort of like in the water system, but you also have to support it and pay for it.
Yeah.
What is the whole value and purpose of having the satellite phone? And it's probably, it could be very good. I just don't know personally, and I don't know if anybody else knows for sure, at least in this forum. We can, but Coos County is a good place to start and see what they're doing with theirs.
Mm-hmm.
Now, do you guys ever talk to Coos County? Do you have anybody that you communicate with?
Harry
Yeah,
does too,
I
ham
do.
radio, yeah.
So,
There needs to be somebody at the county level and the emergency level and the administrative side of the county. They would be the ones that would use it, I would think. But those are things we just need to understand.
mhm.
If it's worth it as a $7,500 plus monthly charges, if there are any, then yeah, we're going to know that it's likely going to be worthwhile.
And how different that is than the ham setup we
Well, it's
have.
definitely different. It's another resource, and again, not putting all your eggs in one basket. But if I were sitting on the council, I'd say, well, what are you going to do with it? And who are you going to talk to?
Agree.
And we're just not going to get any money from the council for quite a while.
Or if we're going to, seed for money from anybody, have what do they call it, a begathon. So anyway, just need some answers on how this fits into a plan.
Mm-hmm.
My thoughts.
And emergency radio frequencies.
Well, if I knew what that was referring to, I'd be prepared. I think I touched on frequencies earlier on. You know who put that on there? Because I didn't put that on the agenda, and I'm not sure why that's there or what I was expected to say.
Yeah, those ham radio frequencies, or they,
Good question.
What were you thinking on
Yeah,
that,
this was, let's see, maybe can glance at the minutes from the last meeting, because I think it had to do with, again, Ashley, and knowing what frequencies everybody will be using, all of that information, so that we were coordinating with other entities, other agencies.
The top is probably more commercial frequencies.
Okay, so we touched on that. And again, we can start with what we do have control over, which is our own frequency, and add to that the ability to interact with the county when we know that. So that's all I can say on that. I don't think there's any more on that subject.
and then we'll try to work Coos County into that as well. All right. Do we have any commissioners' comments?
I have one, and I sent out an email addressing the PSTN, which is an industry term for Public Switch Telephone Network. It was some things that came to mind after I spoke with, I forget the gentleman's name, but I have his phone number, in the OEM office in Portland, who's primarily responsible for emergency telephone communications in the state, mainly 911. They did confirm what I thought is the host tandem switching equipment for the South State is in Klamath, not Klamath, but Medford. So they support Klamath Falls, any other city, Grants Pass, probably Coos Bay, and all the folks here on the coast that have 911s. They had a number of outages for different reasons, and part of the reason is the whole thing is dependent on the infrastructure to work properly. So if there's a fiber optic cable failure on Highway 42, we might not have 911 service. It's been down several times. What I discovered in talking with the state, they basically call the carrier, the phone company, whichever one is involved, and say it's broke, will you fix it? And the phone company calls back and say, we fixed it. But they don't know what happened or whether the vulnerability can be avoided or whether it can be incorporated in the planning. Adding to that is another thing that's happened in the telephone industry since the divestiture is there's a whole bunch of phone companies now, and they have what in the industry called CLECs, competitive local exchange carriers. Here in just Port Orford alone, we have the Legacy Company, which I think is probably CenturyLink. Anybody that's got a local phone number would know. We have Spectrum, we have Ziply, and we have Beacon now providing telephone service. All those services are dependent on components of the internet system, which is very vulnerable, either to physical outage in the event of a seismic event, and it could be an earthquake that's not ocean-based, but it could be land-based, and it severs cables, especially underground cables. Backhoe outages where somebody dug up a cable, and the vulnerability exists in that there's not that many fiber cables, even though there's a lot of fiber carriers, because the original company will typically put in maybe 64 or 128 piece fiber glass conductors, and they have a lot of surplus, so they sell what they call dark fiber. In other words, they'll sell 4 fiber conductors to Spectrum or Beacon or anybody else that comes along in order to help defray the cost of that capital investment. So you maybe have carriers on or cables on a common route, or you have a lot of carriers using the same cable with different fibers in the same cable. Again, it's very, very vulnerable, but it gets better or worse, however you want to look at it. These local exchange carriers in the category of Ziply and Spectrum and the rest of them, and one that I happen to have at my home, which is hosted out of a telephone switching equipment in Texas sometimes, and then sometimes through the internet it switches and it's hosted out of another switch in Anaheim. But I don't ever know where it's switched, and frankly, when it works, I don't care. The problem is all these new services are dependent on portions of the internet. What have we seen in the last 2 or 3 months? We saw this last outage with the upgrade, which was a engineering error where they put a flaw in a software upgrade. We have the AT&T outage from a month or so ago that affected a lot of airlines and people on the East Coast primarily. And there was another one, and I don't remember the details, but the point is these things are becoming more and more common, and our services are more dependent on this weak link. I don't think there's an easy way to fix it. And I was going to send this to the state just to feel them out on it and see if they've even thought about it. So if we know that, and I used the example when we were talking here earlier, we'll use you as an example, Carol. I think you went to Ziply. And it's a good service. I
Yeah.
use Ziply for some stuff, but Ziply won't work if the power goes out. It's not like the old copper-based system. So that's a weakness. Your Ziply service is hosted by a switch, God only knows where, but not in Chiloquin. So if the switch or the components of the internet between us and wherever that switch is located, in or out of the state of Oregon, your phone is dead. You can't even call your neighbor across the street at that point, or 911 or any other service. 20 years ago, that wasn't so much of a problem. You could almost always depend on at least most of the local service working, which in this case would have been CenturyLink or probably Frontier or General Telephone or whoever it was. So we have that vulnerability to contend with. The other is because all these other services, and we'll use the NOAA Weather Service emergency broadcasts. That's transmitted from out in Point or Cape Blanco. That's dependent on the same network. So while you might be able to say, oh, there's an earthquake coming in 10 minutes, you can't go 10 minutes after the earthquake and say, this is what you need to do. There's a tidal wave or there's not a tidal wave. It's probably not going to work. So my only purpose in writing this missive, which I can give you, and you maybe send some copies out, or I can send it out over the internet, is make people that handle the emergency response, the reactive planning, aware that this might not be available, and it might not even take a disaster to where this could be a serious matter, where we lose communications. How are we going to use the ATMs? How are the banks going to do business? How are you going to run your credit card down here at the hardware store? Or Ray's or any place else. People haven't thought that out too much. Those folks that were affected by this last AT&T outage, it's grounded a couple airlines and a few things. How's that?
They sure thought it out.
They might be thinking about it now.
Yeah.
So these are things that on our proactive planning, we should consider that. And it's also a part of the reactive planning. So if you want to have it, I'll give it to you, but I'll also send copies out if anybody wants it.
Oh, yeah, that'd be good to send to
And I was
everybody.
going to tweak the count or the state OEM office a little bit about it. See, have you thought about this kind of stuff? I got the sense they don't do that very much or consider how vulnerable some of these emergency services really are.
Just following on that, I think all of us in the room have gotten messages lately, probably 3 or 4 of them recently, where 911's been down for
All right.
a day or so.
Yep.
Out of Gold Beach.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But if the right part of the network fails, it's moot anyway, because you can't,
Yeah.
you couldn't even get dial tone to call them.
Right.
It's crazy. I mean, we're defeating our own technology.
Is broadband also similarly vulnerable, or is that different?
Who?
Broadband.
Broadband is internet.
It's just a different type of internet?
Well, broadband defines a capacity of a network segment, we'll say.
Exactly. Yeah.
So broadband is just a higher speed internet, for the lack of a better term. And internet is kind of a broad term, but it hosts a whole lot of things that use internet technology, some segmented physically from some parts, but usually it's integrated. And the reason they've done that is what they call provisioning, because now when they put in special services, they don't have to send a guy out with a truck and wire cutters and jumper wires to do it. They sit at a keyboard and they set up a new circuit and do the whole thing remotely. The downside is it can fail just as fast as they set it up. Is that clear as mud?
Hey, Carol, broadband now is more associated with fiber optics and satellite services.
Yeah.
Satellite services. That's your DSL service,
So
broadband.
Higher
I was
speed internet.
Yeah.
So
Good
it's
point.
still, though, as vulnerable to these outages as the other internet services. Is that correct?
That's correct. It's all one big bag of complicated stuff. Is that for a technical
Very
description?
thought.
Well, solar conditions can also take it out.
Oh, right.
We had some very strong solar storms recently, and they're going to increase over the next year. And that could also be an issue, but that's relatively short term.
Yeah, but that's true. An EMP event took down a good part of the power grid up in Ontario a few years
A
ago.
few years back, yeah.
That's electromagnetic pulse, which is a solar-induced electrical event.
Just depends on where it's aimed from.
Exactly. So if it affects the network in Grants Pass, we probably pass through that area geographically with our circuits, just off your telephone. Which also adds, again, in our planning, how do people locally, and particularly the major players, interact with each other without their cell phone, which is hosted by a remote switch someplace else? I don't know where that one is. I didn't ask.
Are there options?
Are there what?
Options?
Options? They'll find another plan to cover that contingency, yes.
But I mean, is there like any other way that we would be able to?
Well, I'd be functional. I have Starlink, so.
Yeah, Starlink is a
Starlink
possibility.
satellite service.
If you have backup power, which she does,
I do as well.
which is a form of a satellite, is actually a satellite type of service.
Yeah.
But not everybody has that.
Not
And 99% of the folks here in town don't have that. And I don't know how many have Starlink.
probably a couple dozen.
Anyway, the issue is we've got an extremely vulnerable resource that we're depending on to do a lot of stuff, including day-to-day business.
And that might also be, what you brought up is probably another arena of emergency. Considering an emergency, if you lose communications, your basic communications, that is an emergency.
It's a component of the plan, yes.
Yeah, big
Oh,
part of
right. Oh, yeah.
If no one can access their funds or other resources.
They can't even go to the market. Now, these are things, maybe the merchants have thought this stuff out, all the ways you're going to do business. Because now you go into a fast food place, if the cash register goes out, the gal can't even sell you a hamburger and make change.
Right.
How bad is that? Even if she has a freezer full of hamburgers.
Right. And that's where it'd be good to be talking to Terry Grimes at the market and
Yeah, exactly.
just so that there's a conversation that's been started.
Stimulate them to think about that. Whoa, if we can't have our internet, how are we going to do business and support this community?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they've considered it. Probably not. But I think they would.
Mm-hmm. And then try to bring in.
The bank is another player in that kind of thing.
Right, right.
Pretty good at bringing problems. I just don't always have good solutions.
Yeah, we heard you were a big problem.
That's true too. I can tell you the people that can confirm that.
Well, we'll just keep tightening these things down and get people to be thinking about how they're going to be communicating, even if it's just with their neighbors.
I'm with you. I think we need to focus on how we're going to function locally in a big event of any sort.
And when the county builds the plan, we can.
And we'll mesh with it. Yeah, we'll mesh with it when they have it.
Yeah.
Yeah, because they're going to have no money to put toward it, and it's a pretty big task for Ashley to take on the whole county because it's basically starting over. Monica Ward had a pretty good foundation going and then lost all of that with the ransomware.
Yeah.
And that was really a shame because she had really done a lot of work.
Quite a bit.
So we'll just have to see, we'll try to meet with Ashley again and see how far she's getting and whether how she wants us to fit in with that.
She's probably involved very directly in summer issues as well. The fire season being really intense right now, and
Right,
she's probably going to be thrown 10 different ways right now
yeah.
for a little while anyway.
All right. Anybody got any other ideas?
Nothing here.
Well, there's no public comments. I move for adjournment.
All right.
Second.
We are adjourned.
I'm fast on you.
I was going to mention to Gary that I heard that the chairman took everybody out to dinner if it went past 7. Is that true?
We're known for going
That's
past.
a bad rumor.
We're known for some long meetings in this room.
It's not dinner, but drinks.
And then so that,
That would work too. Begs to be flexible.
and the next meeting will be on the third Thursday
Third of next month.
of next month.
The
Okay.
third Thursday?
Third Thursday. Or not the third, I'm sorry.
Fourth, yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'd be,
And Gary, I'll get in contact with you when I get back, and we'll meet up next week. Excuse me.
Perfect,
Yeah,
Carol.
whenever you get a chance, they're good when you get back in town.
Yeah,
You
and
know-
then I'll call Coos County and set up a meeting
No,
that includes you as well, Dick.
you know my number.
I sure do. Thank you.
Carol, thanks for making the meeting.
got you.
I know it wasn't easy.
It was confusing, but
Nice, Dick, hang in
you
there.
know, we did it.
Start off with these blanks,
And we'll
All
see you
right.
when you get back.
phone numbers of the hams.
Yeah. We,
And
that'll-
the primary
But
contact, which is
hand
probably
number, all
you
the
as president.
hams.